Good morning, all. Okay, good morning, all. The speaker for today is Dr. Vidhi Thakkar. So, Dr. Vidhi is a passionate academician and a healthcare professional with a master's degree in physical therapy from Gujarat University. She provides client-centered care and practice holistic approach in helping people to achieve and sustain change for better health and positive physical and behavioral outcomes. She predominantly works with the clients suffering from cardiopulmonary condition. She has more than 9 years of experience as an educator. She's also pursuing PhD from CHARUSAT University with an area of interest in technology-enabled hypertensive care. She has presented her research projects at various national and international conferences and has been a team member of consultancy projects for various industries. So I would like to welcome Dr. Vidhi ma'am. And now I would like to hand over this platform to Dr. Vidhi ma'am. So ma'am, you can continue.
Thank you so much, Priyanka ma'am, for that enlightening information regarding my background and my practices. Hello, students, and welcome to the session of physical fitness. Since it is a session of being fit and being actively able to engage in the day-to-day routine, we would like this session not only just to be a PPT presentation, but to be an active session where you also take part into different activities being stated when you're asked to do, even from the place where you're sitting at. Now, what is fitness? We have to understand that first. But in order to understand why is it needed, we will look into something which we will have to take into consideration. In front of you is presentation of level of physical activity. That means how much of activity throughout the day you do in the physical domain. Now, if you can see in front of you, it demarcates men and women as well as what are the targets for them. If you see the graph from top to bottom, it labels into different types of activity which most of the people do in their daily routine. If we talk about aerobic activity or strengthening activities, you can see most of the men and women are unable to reach the set target. Who sets this target? We need to understand even that. Who sets this target? So this target which you're seeing in terms of color in blue is set by international organizations, including World Health Organization. And if you see, all of the people over here are unable to reach the set target. Hence this topic, that why we need to understand physical activity and physical fitness. So what is physical activity? Any movements which you do using your muscles, and the muscle which uses the energy in order to do that movement can be labeled as physical activity. Whereas exercise is the part of physical activity, because if I state the word physical activity, it is day-to-day activity throughout the day which you do without any structure or planning. But if you do an activity with a structure, with a plan, with a number of repetition, with a goal in mind, and the goal being improving your fitness, then it is labeled as exercise. Now coming to the topic of our today's session, physical fitness. So physical fitness entails physical activity as well as exercise, and it is described as a set of physical attributes which allows your body to respond to the demands and stresses of efforts which you have placed on it. That means fitness is an outcome of the physical activity and exercise which you do. The type of exercise and type of physical activity which you do will also decide the type of fitness which you're going to give. I'll make you understand what do I mean by the type of physical fitness. So when we are looking at daily routine, if our agenda is just to improve our current health, then if you perform daily 30 minutes of brisk walking for most of the days of the week, by spending almost 150 calories per week, then your health will improve. But if you have a set mind, let's say you wish to achieve weight reduction in association with health promotion, then the duration for which you will have to exercise will have to increase if you are still going to perform the brisk walking itself. This is an example of the different kinds of physical activity which you can perform. As for the previous slide, I gave you an example for brisk walk. Instead of brisk walk, if you choose to perform different physical activity, let's say bicycling or joke, rumping the joke, as well as swimming or water aerobics, something like that, automatically the activity becomes vigorous. Hence, the time required to do that activity you will have to drop in order to avoid any activity-induced injury. So this type of activity which you are going to choose will also decide the type of fitness you are going to get. For example, if you are looking at jumping the rope or bicycling, both of them are going to address your aerobic system. Whereas if you are going to perform weightlifting, it is going to address muscle strength. They both are different kind of physical fitness. Now, if you are looking at physical fitness, what level of activity you should be doing in order to achieve that fitness? So if you are a beginner who has no whatsoever experience with exercise and structured physical activity, then you have to take a call that how much activity will you be doing in order to achieve a designated physical fitness. You need to understand that as a beginner, it is always suggested that you go through your full body checkup. That means specifically your cardiovascular health. And if you have no risk factor or less than 2 risk factors, then you are a rightful candidate who can go for activities which makes you moderately intense stress on you. But if you are already exercising for a certain period of time, then you may become a candidate who can go for high intensity exercise. Now, when you choose either of the intensity, the frequency, that means the number of repetitions which you are going to do, or the time of the day or number of days you're going to do will change based upon the intensity which you choose. So if you are at moderate intensity, the number of repetition, the number of days for which you exercise increases. If you choose high intensity exercise, the number of days or the number of repetition decreases. This is how the continent of health and fitness looks like. This continent tells you that the benefit with physical activity and exercise for health gradually increases in a fashion of a curve happening in the middle, whereas a sinusoidal shape is happening for the case of fitness. So what are the components of fitness which we were talking about? In order to understand which component to address for yourself, let's look into a video and we'll get back to this slide once we address what the person in the video is doing. I hope all of you are able to see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I hope you are able to hear the sound.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Please look into this video and
Growing up in
see
Skye,
all the
Poland for
kinds
me
of
have always
activity
been
which this
a very
person is doing.
inaccessible place. There's an incredible knife-edge ridge that runs right the way along the top of them. And I've always wondered whether it would be possible for me to ride my mountain bike up there.
What a voice, what a voice, what a voice I hear. It's like the voice of my beloved dear. But the swallow I will clasp in the arms of my belly boy. What a voice, what a voice, what a voice I It's like the voice of my What a voice, what a voice, what a voice. It's like the voice of my but if I had wings like that swallow There is a blackbird sits on yon tree. Some says it is blind and it can Some says it is blind and it can see. There is a blackbird sits on yon tree. Some says it is blind
I hope you all have enjoyed the video. Now, we will be discussing that what all aspects of fitness this person would have addressed in order to achieve this level of physical fitness. Let's go back to our slides. So the first component which we are looking in front of us is called as cardiorespiratory endurance, which helps us to use our large group of muscle when we are performing dynamic exercise. You have decided whether you will be doing a moderate level or high intensity level physical activity with large group of muscle, not individuals. So in our example, the person was doing mountain biking. So he was using multiple large group of muscle in order to bike through the mountains. So he did have cardiorespiratory endurance for him to perform at this particular level of activity. The second is muscular strength. It is the amount of force which a muscle is going to produce in one single maximum lift. What does that mean? You would have seen the person lifting the bike on his shoulder and then walking through the mountain as well in order to go through a difficult terrain. If he does not have sufficient strength to lift the bike on his hand as well as climb through his legs, then he would have found it difficult to conquer that mountain. Hence, he had muscular strength, a force required him to lift the bike in a one go, as well as the force required for him to climb the mountain. What is muscular endurance? It is a part, or it is in synchrony with muscle strength, where muscle strength you produce the effort for a single time, whereas in endurance you are utilizing the same group of muscle repeatedly over a period of time. So you are going to utilize the same group of muscle, but repeatedly and for a longer duration. So here you would have seen that he was continuously climbing or he was descending. That means he even had muscular endurance, apart from him lifting the bike on his shoulder, which states his muscle strength. Then comes flexibility. How flexible or how lengthening of the muscle can take place for a joint or over a group of joints. So when he was traveling on a boat in order to reach the shore, you would have seen him sitting where he was pulling and pushing the racks. And in order to do so, he had to make a forward and a backward movement of his strap. This can happen if he had sufficient lengthening of his back and the lower limb muscles. The last one to address in health-related component of fitness is body composition. That means, what does your body entails? What amount of muscle does it have? What amount of bone it has? What amount of fat it has? And what amount of water? You would have understood from multiple information by social medias and newspaper that individuals have different body type. Yes, that is true. They do have different body type. Some people will have larger frames. That means if you take them at the shoulder and waist level, the frame would be broad. Some people will have medium and some people will have small. That means the frame is small. That means the shoulder and the waist are smaller in size. In order to fit that frame, you will have different components: muscle, bone, water, fat. Now, if you have different proportions of muscle, different proportion of bone, fat and water, your body composition type will change. Some people will fall into heavy category, some will be in moderate, some will be in normal, and some will be in underweight. This has been decided based upon the ratio of muscle, bone, fat, and water you have. Higher the fat, the higher the body fat, the heavier you will be considered. The lower the body fat, the lesser you will be. Now, this concept is not simple. You still need to consider fat mass to fat-free mass ratio as well. Let's take an example that you have two individuals. Both of them are of 100 kgs when you measure them on a weighing scale. But the person on your right has higher amount of fat mass. whereas the person on your left has lower amount of fat mass. So here they do have the same weight, but one has more fat mass, the other has less fat mass. This tells you that they have different amount of body composition, hence their physical fitness will be different. So we just studied 5 components of health-related physical fitness. The first one being cardiorespiratory endurance, where we talked about performing dynamic exercises using large group of muscles at your designated intensity. Maybe it's moderate or maybe it's high. Now, this cardiorespiratory endurance, the example of a simple way of improving it is doing a walking, doing a brisk walking, jogging, spot jogging, running, cycling, swimming. In terms of muscle strength, you would have seen a lot of group of people doing weightlifting. If you do it for a limited number of repetitions, let's say at less than 8 or 8, you at a higher load are going to develop a muscle strength. But if you are doing it at a higher repetition, say 8 and beyond till 12 to 15, and you do it at a lower weight, then you are going to develop muscle endurance. What I mean by the word flexibility, there are lots of group of muscles, and most of the time we utilize them at their shortest position. If we separate the 2 ends of a muscle, they are going to elongate and will give you a feeling of stretch, simply like this. Now, when you're feeling that stretch, you're trying to address the flexibility of that particular group of muscle. The last one, as we discussed, your body composition. So when you all measure your weight, please remember the weight simply in kg is not going to reflect whether you have fat mass or fat-free mass. You will have to go for other investigation, which is available in the market for you to identify how much fat mass you have, how much fat-free mass you have. Okay. So this was all about health-related component of physical fitness. Now, we also have something called as skill-related components of fitness. You can see in front of you people doing different sorts of activities. Okay, now what are those activities and why we need to consider them? If your goal is simply to improve your health, which is usually the case for the patients which we treat, okay, the cases where the patients would likely address their health-related issues and would like to improve their health-related things. But if they want to participate at a higher end of physical activity, which is required in their occupation, or if they want to participate in competitive sports, then they would likely to require the skill-related fitness. Now, the skill-related fitness in front of you are 6, as you can see. Now, each kind of physical activity or sports requires the skills in varying amount. Varying amount means a patient or an athlete. When we are addressing skill-related fitness system, type of physical activity or type of sport will tell you how much speed, how much power, how much agility, how much balance, coordination or reaction time they need. But let's say the girl here throwing a basketball, okay, for a gymnast who is standing on a court, for a footballer who is about to kick, and for a runner who is clearing the obstacle. All of them will require this 6 in varying amounts in different proportion. Now, for a runner, a speed would be an important skill which he must have in order to participate and even win the competitive sports. Whereas for a gymnast, balance and coordination would be the important skill. But that doesn't mean they will not require other skills as well. But proportionately, they would have to have, for this case, the best of speed, and for this case, the best of balance and coordination. if you remember our video, you would have seen the person on the bike going at a particular speed. You would have seen the person lifting and taking turns while lifting the cycles at certain power. You would have seen him changing directions as and when required based upon where the road is going on a mountain. You would have seen him jumping from one hill to another hill, which would address his balance and coordination. And at the end of the video, you would have seen him jumping the fence along with his bike, which required reaction. So what are the skills? The skill speed states exactly how we understand speed in physics. The distance which the person is covering per unit time decides what the speed is. Now here the speed can be a running speed, can be a jumping speed, can be a hand action, can be a rolling action. Now, based upon the type of physical activity you do, how fast you do it in a designated amount of time will address the skill called as speed. The second one is power. You usually lift multiple weights in a designated amount of time. So the strength with which you are going to lift a weight per unit time will be talking about the power you have. Let's say a person is showing a shot put. So how weighted the ball is and in what fractions of time the person is able to throw their ball is going to talk about power. What is agility? Agility is how quick you're able to change the direction in which you were moving. You would have seen this very nicely when you were seeing running of a leopard or a deer. They are called as a quite agile animals in our animal kingdom. Why? Because when they are running and they encounter another animal or an obstacle, they are very quickly able to change the direction in which they are. That's why they are called agile animals. For us, it is the same way when we are testing some physical activity, let's say, in this case, running. So how fast the person going in the right direction can change the direction and start running in the left. There are many tests in order to measure your agility. Then comes balance and coordination. Now, we require balance and coordination in our day-to-day life. You would have seen while walking on the road, whenever you encounter an obstacle, you might have tried to jump through it. You might have tried to walk on that narrow path or maintain yourself steady in an uneven terrain. This all activity had required you to have a balance and coordination. In the example front of you, or in the case of Vidhi, you would have seen both of the candidates were maintaining their position very steady on a very narrow surface. Here in the figure, you can see the female is balancing her on a very narrow pole. Same way you would have seen the person balancing himself on a cycle in a very narrow path on a mountain. Same way, coordination. Coordination talks about whether you are able to perform an activity in a synchronous pattern. So you would have seen that instead of losing the balance on that terrain, the person was maintaining the balance, but as well as he was able to perform the synchronous activity as well of riding the bicycle on that terrain. Same way, you are able to see here the gymnast balancing on her pole, as well as she will synchronously take a swift kick, as well as come rolling down and balance herself again on the opposite pole, showing her coordination as well. Similarly, when you are typing on a mobile or on a laptop, you would have seen are working in respect to one another, and you would have achieved certain level of synchrony. If you have practiced multiple point of time, the speed with which that synchrony happened would have improved. If you have not practiced it multiple times, the speed with which that synchrony is happening will reduce, which talks about the skill coordination. The last one is reaction time. So if I ask you here just to say yes, how quickly you're going to say the answer yes? I'm listening. So this tells me that your reaction time is still in the middle. Okay, the yes needs to come as quick as possible to address your reaction time towards the question being asked you. So here you can see that the yes didn't come that fast, and that's why your reaction time is little bit lower than what was expected. Okay, so these are the 6 skill-related fitness components: speed, power, agility, balance, coordination, and reaction. And please remember, we all have this particular components. We all have this particular components in varying amount, depending upon in our day-to-day routine, which skills we require the most. If you have to run in order to get groceries, then you might have addressed speed and agility on a regular way. Whereas if you have habit of juggling through a lot of items in your hand, then you would have addressed balance, coordination, and reaction time. Okay, so based upon the physical activity which you do in a daily routine, you would have certain level of these skills. But in order to perform at athletic level or in competitive sports, you would require this particular sets of skill at a higher level, depending upon type of sports in which you're participating. As I've stated here in this example, the person is a runner, where the first and foremost thing which you'll have to look for is his speed. That doesn't mean you will not look for other skills. Same way here in this example, the person is a gymnast, where the first and foremost skill set you will be looking for balance and coordination. That doesn't mean you will not be looking for other skills, but they will need to have speed in this example and balance and coordination in this example to be of highest cadre or category. Okay, so the 2 important types of fitness. One is health-related component of fitness. Second one is skill-related components of fitness. Health-related has 5 skills or 5 components, namely cardiovascular endurance, muscle strength, muscle endurance, flexibility, and body composition. Whereas the skill-related component has 6 skills. The first one being speed, the second one being agility, third one being power, fourth one being balance, fifth one being coordination, and the last one being the reaction time. Now let's move forward and see to the group that how these different skills will help you in taking to a next level. So the type of training, if you have decided, you need to identify what is your ultimate goal, what you wish to achieve, whether you wish to achieve health-related fitness or any of the skill-related. Based upon that, your type of training will be decided. Okay, so to develop a particular fitness component, you will have to choose a particular type of exercise. Okay, now in order to choose that, you have to decide what will be your ultimate outcome. For example, in our video case, the person's ultimate outcome needs to be mountain climb. Okay, so accordingly, he will need definitely the health-related component of fitness, but the skill-related component fitness in varying amount. Considering that as an ultimate outcome, the person should be able to do a mountain climb, we have to decide which all fitness components we are going to address. So as I've stated, I'll be addressing both of these, but in case of skill-related component of fitness, it will be varying in amount because the person definitely needs the agility, the person definitely needs power, the person needs the balance and coordination, reaction time, and speed. But the best of it, the person will need, because it's an uneven terrain, he has to continuously climb. He needs to have a very good balance and coordination, followed by power, followed by reaction time, then agility, and lastly the speed, since he was not being rushed to. Now, if it is a timed event, where the time is a factor, then definitely the speed will become an important component. So here you can see that whenever we are designing an exercise program, we need to take into consideration that if we start training for a particular fitness component, you have to take into consideration an important factor. That important factor is considered as an overload. So what is it? What is it? So when we are looking at it, placing increasing amount of stress in the body in order to create adaptation, that is critical. Now, what is the word for it? It's overload. What is it? If you start training at the level at which you are currently, you will simply maintain the level at which you are. But if you want to go from level 0 to level 1, you will have to increase the amount of stress in order to go from level 0 to level 1. If you have to do that, that particular amount of stress is considered as an overload. That means you went from level 0 to level 1 via using the overload principle. How you can use that overload principle? If you take into consideration a principle of FIT, it has 4 components, F-I-T-T. F means frequency. The frequency means how often, how many times are you going to do per week that particular activity. So if you're doing currently that activity for 3 days a week, the overload itself states that you have to go to either 4 or 5 days a week. Second component which you can take into consideration is the intensity. How hard you do it. So if you're doing at moderate intensity currently for 3 days a week, and you have to increase the intensity, then you can go for high intensity for 3 days a week. If you're looking at time, so initially you are doing that same activity for 20 minutes per day, then you may increase the time to 30 minutes per day. And if you are currently doing activity, the time, which is not in synchrony with your outcome goal, as we have stated, let's say the outcome goal is mountain climb, then definitely you have to move your walking program towards a cycling program, and that on an uneven time. So you can use this principle in order to go from level 0 to level 1 of mountain climbing. But you need to understand that in order to go from level 0 to level 1, you may not increase all of the FITT. You have to take it slow. If you increase intensity, the frequency and time can be lesser. But if you increase the frequency or time, then the intensity needs to be high. They work inversely in respect to one another. So if you increase frequency, the intensity can be low. If you increase time, the intensity can be low. But if you increase intensity, it is vice versa. Hence, whenever you decide what programs you are about to initiate, you have to look into an overload principle. You have to achieve that overload by utilizing the FITT. Now, in order to reduce from that person, you need to consider another training aspects as well. So what are they? So when we are looking at this aspect, we need to consider another principle. Let's say you started performing a program, but due to some or the other reason, you decided to take a break from it. So whatever benefits you have achieved or how long you perform that activity will reduce over a period of time. That means whatever level you have achieved, whatever physical fitness you have achieved, whichever components you have to perform over a period of time, the added benefits, the added fitness, okay, are going to decrease. So if you do not take action, you may end up from level 1, which you have achieved, to level 0. And you might have to start the training again from level 0. That's what reversibility principle talks about. It is adapting to a reduction in training. So if you don't want to lose the fitness which you have achieved or the level which you have achieved, you will have to go to a maintenance program. So if you stop exercising, in the upcoming 2 months itself, you will be reducing the fitness level which you've achieved by 50%. That's drastic. So in upcoming few more months, you might be completely losing the 100% gain. That means you will be back to level 0 and you have to restart your training. Hence, if you start to decide a program, you design a program, to perform a program, then please remember that maintenance of that program is an important key in order to maintain the level of your physical activity or the level of your fitness. So when we are looking at further aspects to it, then we need to understand one more aspect. If we are considering the example of a mountain climbing, we need to understand that based upon his level of fitness, his body composition, his level of skills, as well as his genetics, he is very different from all of us. He is very different from all of us. Okay. So based upon our own body composition, our level of skills, we have to take a decision on what kind of adaptabilities and what level of adaptabilities we are in position to achieve. So what I'm asking you all to do is, please accept that there are individual differences in all of the health-related and skill-related components of fitness amongst all of us. And based upon the difference, some of the adaptability will be possible for us, whereas some of the adaptability will be limited for us. So when you think that you are ready, which I'm considering that after listening to this fitness programs and fitness session, you will design your own program following this particular method. Please verify that you have a sufficient medical clearance in order to initiate a moderate intensity or a high intensity. When I say medical clearance, that means you do not have currently any critical illness for which you are taking any medical surgical management. You have less than 3 risk factors. Risk factors like you do not have yourself diabetes, hypertension, you yourself are not having obesity of more than 20 pounds, you yourself are not sedentary, which means you are exercising already for 30 minutes per day for 5 days a week at moderate intensity. You do not have a family history of early onset cardiac diseases or a cardiac surgery. Okay, so if you have lesser risk factor, you have more chances of performing physical activity or design and perform your exercise program without any supervision. But if you have currently any condition and more than 3 numbers of risk factor, then you definitely need a supervised exercise program in front of a trained healthcare professional. Okay. Based upon your medical clearance, your fitness assessment will be done in order to understand at which level you are for health-related component and at which level you are at skill-related component. And based upon your ultimate goal, each of this component would be targeted in your exercise program. In order to target each of this component, we design goals. So what is this goal designing? So let's say you all want to perform 30 minutes of brisk walking for 5 days a week. So when I state, I have very specifically said that I wish to achieve that I can finish 5 kilometers of walk in 45 minutes. That is my ultimate goal. Okay, so what you have done over here, you have stated specifically what you want to do and by what time you want to do. But they didn't specify how you're going to measure. So nowadays, we have a lot of smartwatches and application as well as GPS, which tells us how much distance we have traveled, whether by walking, by cycle, or by a car. Now, at the level at which you are currently, let's say you have never walked at all. So if you state that you wish to achieve that you walk 5 kilometers in 45 minutes at the end of 3 weeks, that is not a realistic goal because it would be difficult if you have never walked at all and you are a sedentary person. But if you are walking on a regular basis and you are already doing 2 kilometers to 2.5 kilometers in 30 minutes, then it may be achieved in 3 to 4 weeks. That's why attainable, realistic, and time frame specific goals are a requirement. Hence, what is the target of your fitness? You have to design the goals accordingly. Once you have attained the fitness assessment, you have designed a specific goals, you are going to include a balanced program which is going to address both the health related components and the skill related component. And your set SMART goal will help you to measure how much target you have achieved, how much target is remaining to achieve. Let's say you were already walking for 2 kilometers at 30 minutes. Now you already know that how much distance is left for you to cover and how much duration also is left for you to cover in the upcoming 4 weeks. Okay, so what I suggest is, since I have given you a basic idea of what your exercise program should look like, what are components you should address based upon which skills or which athletic activity you want to perform, you can design your program. But if no such activity is in your mind and you simply want to improve your health related fitness, then in front of you, there is a physical activity pyramid. And for you all, what amount of physical activity you should do in order to maintain and to improve your health related components. So as you can see, the amount for which you are going to spend sitting, which you're doing right now, even listening to the session, has to be less and less throughout the day. That means the number of hours which you spend while sitting, whether you are surfing the internet, talking on a phone, listening to a session or a television, it has to be the least amount throughout the day. Whereas you should perform 2 to 3 days per week strengthening exercise, which includes your upper body muscles, your lower body muscles. You should perform stretching exercise for 2 or more days for most of the muscle groups, which you usually use in a shortened position. You should perform aerobic exercise or improving your cardiorespiratory endurance exercise for 3 to 5 days a week for 20 minutes to 60 minutes. What kind of activities are there? You can simply take a walk. You can go for a jogging, bicycling, swimming, aerobic dancing, cross-country skiing, or a basketball. Any of this activity you choose, you perform it for 3 to 5 days per week in a range of 20 to 60 minutes. This will help you in achieving improvement in your cardiorespiratory endurance. And the last one is, if your agenda is different, or say you want to reduce weight, you want to improve your skill, you want to perform an athletic training, then the duration of that particular activity needs to improve. So this physical activity pyramid tells you that what type of physical activity you should be performing throughout the day in order to maintain your health status. Do as less as possible sitting, perform strengthening and flexibility for more than 2 days per week, and perform your aerobic exercise or cardiorespiratory endurance exercise for at least 3 to 5 days per week for 20 to 60 minutes. If you do this, your health will stay in balance. The benefits which you are going to get if you look at the activity. So if you're performing simply a low-level physical activity or lifestyle physical activity, your health will be maintained. Example of lifestyle physical activity, you only did 15 minutes of walking, or 10 minutes of cycling, or 30 minutes of dancing. What benefits you're going to get? Your blood cholesterol level will be controlled. Your body fat is going to reduce. Your blood pressure is going to reduce. Your glucose metabolism is going to increase, hence the sugar level being controlled. Your overall quality of life will improve, whereas the chances of you ending up with some chronic diseases will drop, whereas you will also have a healthy balance in your weight. This will simply happen if you adopt a lifestyle physical. So if you perform a higher end physical activity, the benefits are going to be more, absolutely. If you perform a moderate exercise program, you are going to end up with an improved cardiorespiratory endurance, strength, endurance, and flexibility in relation to muscle. And there would be a drastic reduction in the risk factors related to chronic diseases and a multitude improvement in quality of life. Whereas if you perform a vigorous activity, you will have further benefits and further reductions in risk. Though you always have to be careful if you perform a vigorous activity, since it is a short-lived activity at a higher load, the chances of injury or chances of overtraining are high. So you have to carefully moderate the vigorous exercise. Therefore, it is stated that it will always be beneficial if you choose, if you have never exercised or are just beginning to exercise, that you perform a moderate intensity exercise program and then take yourself to a vigorous exercise. Okay, so simply the guideline of your training will be, you need to train the principle in order to make any changes in your body. You have to do it on a regular basis. Always start slowly and then gradually change the shape, because you want to avoid overtraining, harm, and injury to your body. Always remember that you need to warm up. That means you stretch, you do repetitions at lower intensity for a longer duration before you actually start performing exercise at your designated intensity. That's warm up. If you perform a cool down, that means you do not immediately stop exercising. You have to stop exercising in a gradual fashion. So if you are running supposedly at 4 kilometers per hour, you cannot immediately stop. You can gradually reduce the speed. And whenever you are gradually reducing the speed for, let's say, 5 to 7 minutes, then only you can stop exercise. Safety whenever you perform exercise is the first and foremost priority, because if you are not in a safe environment, the chances of injury are high. For example, if it's an uneven terrain and you are running, the chances of fall and head injuries or other injuries becomes high. If you're running on a treadmill and the belt is not secure, then also the chances of injuries are high. Hence, the guidelines of training tells you what are things you should take into consideration to perform one single exercise session and how to keep on doing that exercise session in order to achieve benefits. So please listen to your body, get adequate rest, get adequate volume of exercises. If you get bored easily or if you are less likely to perform the designated exercise, choose a buddy who will help you to exercise with them. Perform different types of exercise also if you do not like monotonicity. Get your headspace in the right space. In order to train, you have to train your mind, as well as track your progress and keep your exercise program in a perspective where you have to utilize different principles. You can use this program if you want to start a walking. Start initially at this level, gradually reach to this point, then go to a brisk walk up, and finally a brisk walking uphill. This is simply a program for a beginner who has not yet started a walking program. Benefits. That's it from my side. If you all have any questions or queries, please do share it with me. I'm ready to answer all your questions.
Hello, participants. If anybody has any questions, can ask right now.
Have any health related query which you can target with your fitness program, you can definitely ask about it. So I'm considering all of you have understood all the concepts which we have presented over here for physical fitness. If you have more questions, you can definitely reach out to me at CHARUSAT University, Changa, and we can definitely share this conversation in face-to-face. Hope to see you all soon at CHARUSAT University.
Okay. So thank you so much, ma'am. It was really an helpful session. And thank you so much to enlighten us with the importance of physical fitness and its importance. So thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for the invitation.
Thank you.